Hey, what's up? This is Chosen, and this video is going to be your community update for February 20th, 2020. Lots to cover in terms of compensation, tournaments, events, fusion, and stuff being extended and all sorts of things going on. So yeah, let's get into it. Alrighty, so the first thing I want to dive in and cover here, if we go under the news tab, we'll see downtime compensation. Enjoy these free gifts as our apology to you. So the game has kind of been, it's been a really rocky time for Plarium in the last week or two. There's been drama and bans and downtime and maintenance breaks. It's been a really rough time recently. So they're saying, some of you may have experienced issues recently when attempting to play raid. Don't worry, it's not a problem with your game. We've had server issues. It's our fault, not yours. Here's some compensation to some free gifts for you having to put up with this the last few days. So what I wanted to do is kind of pull this up, let you guys know exactly what this is worth. So we've got 100 gems, we've got a day of XP, we've got 1 million silver, and we've got three star chickens. All right, so we can see this comes out to about $4 or $5 worth of compensation, which is probably par for the course. Typically, I would say that's about the range they send out. I would have liked to see them step it up a little bit in this circumstance, just because there's been so much going on, and I'm starting to, more than ever, hear of players starting to try other games, starting to look elsewhere because it's just been so rough for the last few weeks. So I really would have liked to see them step up to the plate and try to hit a home run on this compensation, send out 2,000 energy and a couple void shards or something. Now is the time to step up to the plate, but they it is good they sent out some compensation. Lots of developers, lots of games don't do this, so they did step up and do something. I just wish it would have been a little bit more. Alrighty, and let me put that away here. So let's hide that and get back to business here. So I'm also hearing, oh wait, sparring pit, gotta fix this. Don't care for live. We gotta be efficient and make that happen. All right, so yeah, I'm also hearing behind the scenes that there's actually a ×10 event coming up for summoning Manaya and CORSAIR. So if you're not familiar, they are new champions, and they're kind of like the Beauty and the Beast theme. We've got Manaya here, the new legendary Bannerlord that can be summoned from your normal shards, like your Ancients and your Sacreds. And then we've got the new Skinwalker, CORSAIR, right here, and this is a void, so only going to be able to acquire from void shards. So they're really doing an event that's going to hit both sides of the spectrum in terms of shards, the regular shards and the void shards, which is going to be very rough. And it's important to remember the X10 events can be a little bit misleading. This legendary is very good. Manaya is obviously not quite as good as CORSAIR. CORSAIR is an absolute beast. I would love to have this guy AoE A1 that decreases turn meter. We got tandem effects with Manaya, and his whole kit is honestly really good, and would obviously love to get him. I'm gonna have to reserve judgment until I see the X10 event go live, but I do want to caution you guys, typically even during X10 events, your odds of getting that specific champion, like yourself, obviously a lot of people in the community are going to acquire these champions at a higher rate than normal, but in terms of you individually getting the champion during an X10 event, it's a lot lower than you would think. So it's tough. I'm gonna have to see the event be structured. I just want you to keep that in mind. Even during an X10 event, if you're gonna yank all your shards for CORSAIR, you're still talking about, like, gosh, I want to say it's like a 0.7% chance per shard. So you're talking about needing like 100 to 150 shards to void shards to feel decent about your chance of getting him. We'll have to see kind of how it's structured and how the offers are, for void shards and stuff like that. So I will keep you guys up to date on if that event is worth it or not. But I did want to tell you that an X10 event is being told to me that it's coming as soon as tomorrow for CORSAIR and Manaya, the Bannerlord legendary and the Skinwalker void legendary. And then moving on to the next thing I wanted to talk about, I'm also being told behind the scenes that, and I do think this is a good idea, the Rotos, the Lost Groom fusion is going to be extended, and I believe it's going to be about 5 days. So right now we can see that we've got about 10 days left. This is going to be extended possibly tomorrow or possibly at the end of it. I don't know exactly how it's going to be implemented or when it's going to be announced, but the Rotos fusion is going to be extended. That I'm being told for sure. So I believe it's going to be 5 days, and it's going to go from 10 days left to 15 days left. I don't know how that's going to affect the tournaments and the events that are tied into it. I wasn't told about that. I don't know if they're going to be doing extra events during that 5 days, or if they're going to be extending the ones from here on out to be a little bit longer. I do not know that for sure, but I do know the Fusion is going to be extended, and I think that's a good thing, and it kind of sways me, you know, in terms of should you go for it or should you not. I think it's a lot more realistic now. Before, it was probably a little bit too tough to recommend. Now, I would say it's so tough because it really depends on each player individually. I'm going to go for it, but also I want to make note that you definitely go for Sepulchre Sentinel. I'm probably saying it wrong. The Sentinel Epic, this one here, make sure and at least go for this one. So be focusing on getting these rares. You should already have these two, Mystic Hand and Hollow, if you've been doing things properly, and then these two are yet to come in future events, I believe. So definitely at least go for this Epic here, the Sentinel, and if it's realistic for you, you should at least try to get in position to do the Fusion, because you're going to get a little bit of extra time. It's still going to be a tough thing to do, and don't feel bad if you're not able to go for it. If you're a newer to mid-game player, it might still be out of your grasp, but anytime you can get a legendary, it's good to go for it. And Rotos is actually a pretty good legendary. I kind of undersold him at first, but since I've seen more people test him and more information has come out in the community, I've kind of changed my view, and I do think Rotos is a pretty good legendary. And he also pairs with the super OP Void legendary Siphi, the Lost Bride, that kind of goes with Rotos, the Lost Groom, to pair a tandem. She is definitely better than him, but they are both pretty good, and thus I would recommend going for him if it is realistic, and expect this to be extended somewhat soon by about 5 days. Alrighty, so that covers that, and now let's go ahead and kind of pull up everything going on right now. So we've got an Ice Golem tournament that just finished. Obviously, the Ice Golem is probably the least desirable dungeon to grind, so that one wasn't a super big hit. Now we're moving into the Dragon tournament. The Dragon dungeon is probably the best overall dungeon to grind. If I had to pick one dungeon, it's because you can drop the speed, lifesteal, accuracy, a bunch of good sets in there that are very endgame viable and, you know, very just generally useful, and it's also one of the dungeons that are easier to do quickly. It's kind of just a DPS race. One thing to remember about the Dragon, you cannot affect the Dragon's turn meter. I always like to mention that because it's a unique ability of the Dragon that isn't really talked about or mentioned super often. So this event here, or tournament, is going to be pretty tough to place highly, because you're probably going to have a lot of people in your group getting after it. And they've been making these groups a lot bigger. Let me look at where we stand now. Okay, 100. They were making some of these like 200 at one point. They used to be like 50 or so. I like that they're scaling it back a little bit down to 100. I swear I've seen them be bigger than that previously. And I do like how they are giving full sets and not the 4-piece sets. I really don't like when they do that. You may want to do get the Fusion character. This one is for the champion on the far left, so odds are it's not for Azure. So a lot of you out there already have an Azure that you've saved up because it's a Void Epic, but this one here is a little bit more desirable for the Fusion, because I think this is for the Shaman part of the Fusion. And the Epic book top reward, I wish it was a legendary book, so maybe just go for the Fusion, and it kind of depends on your group if you want to get into a war for going for these relentless sets or not. So you'll kind of have to base that based on your group. Alrighty, and then in terms of the events going on, there's a lot to cover here. The champion training event, you're going to want to at least keep an eye on this and go for the Fusion champion, which is at 18,575. We've got about 3.5 days left on this, so definitely keep an eye on it. It's never a bad idea to train up your champions. So this is an event you're basically always going to want to participate in, so definitely keep an eye out. And just as a reminder, do not feed level 1 champions to rank up champions. So especially for your 4 and 5 stars, and maybe even your 3 stars, you're gonna want to at least use like 1 or 2 brews on them before you feed them. So for example, what I'm talking about here is I've got this 5-star food right here. Now if I were gonna make a 6-star champion, I would not feed this level 1 5-star. You're missing out on an opportunity for a lot of points. What I would do is come down here, pop a couple brews, and then keep an eye on if you're gonna hit really close to the next level. So pop a 3rd, and then look at this. So I can pop a 1-star to drag me over to 18. So make sure you're kind of managing this stuff. Like, I wouldn't want to feed a champion that's right here. I would go ahead, that's worth it, especially on a 4 or 5 star, to get the extra points. And this is what I would do. I would upgrade them. I'll do it anyway because it's during the event. So that's just free points right there. So especially for your 4 and 5 stars, maybe even your 3 stars, try not to be feeding level 1 champions during an event. Even if they're food, soak up those free points for the level upgrades, and that'll really help you over the course of the next few days in terms of acquiring a lot of points to progress in that champion training event. All right, and then in terms of the other ones here, this was for Hollow. This one was pretty easy. Probably not a whole lot to go over there. The artifact enhancement event, I tweeted about this. I did a little bit of math, and I found out that probably for most players, it's going to cost anywhere from 18 million to 24 million, depending on your RNG and kind of what you're upgrading. I think it costs me about 20 or 21 million to max out this event. So expect to spend somewhere between 18 and 24, depending on what you're doing. And I think, I haven't done any hard math on this, but I think the most efficient route is upgrading stuff to level 12. 16 is super expensive, and you can fail a bunch of times, especially going from 15 to 16, and you don't get any points for level 13 or 14 or 15. So I just off the top of my head, I think in terms of the artifact enhancement, it is best to upgrade a bunch of stuff to level 12. Some would argue upgrading a bunch of stuff to level 8 is better because you can kind of spread yourself a little bit more thin and see which artifacts are worth keeping and which ones you can throw away. But I think it's one of those two, level 8 or level 12, depending on how many artifacts you have and you know, how many things you need to see are worth keeping or not. You can make a case for both of those scenarios. But now is a good time to take things to level 16 because you're going to have to do that eventually anyway. If you have a really good piece for a champion that you use a lot, go ahead and take it to 16 during the event and scoop up those points. Don't just take stuff to 8 and 12, you know, unless you're really trying to min-max your points because you're super low on silver. But again, at least go for the Corpulent Cadaver because it's a new rare, and odds are you probably don't have it. So if you're going for the Fusion, you're probably going to want to at least get to 4,000 on that. Alrighty, and then the Dungeon Divers, not a whole lot to go over here. The Runic Warder is actually at 2315 in terms of points, but I believe Runic Warder was part of the, I'm all over the place here, was part of the, yes, Runic Warder is part of the Azure, which I already had, so I did get one, but not one that I really needed because I'm going to feed my 5-star Azure instead of doing these, and then I'm going to have to focus on these rares to make this, and yeah, so that kind of covers what's going on in the game currently. Remember, there is an X10 event for Manaya and Coronar coming tomorrow is what I'm told. The Fusion will be extended, and yeah, that kind of covers everything you need to know going into tomorrow, which is Friday, and as things come up, I will definitely do my best to keep you up to date on everything that is going on. So yeah, as always, thank you for watching. Have a good rest of your day. Peace.